Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond Death, the podcast that is rewriting the conversation about death, covering a range of topics in the death space, and really importantly, celebrating the wonderful people that work in this arena and hearing stories from those who are affected. I'm your host, Dr. Susie Shelmerdine, a children's imaging expert and co-founder of Anubix, a leading post-mortem imaging reporting service provider, and also the sponsor of this podcast channel. I am delighted to be joined today by Dr. Natasha Davendralingam, my co-founder at Anubix and also a post-mortem radiologist. The entrepreneurial journey, as we all know, is a really challenging one, full of highs and lows, but very rewarding. And today I thought it might be really fun for us to get to know one of the brains behind the business and the vision for the mission behind Anubix. Natasha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Susie. It's great to be here.
So, first of all, in simple terms, we've talked about Anubix a bit, but what is Anubix and what is the purpose of it?
Gosh, that's a really good question. So, what is Anubix? So, to me, Anubix is postmortem imaging reimagined. And what I mean by that is that we're looking at postmortem imaging in a different light, in a more holistic view. So we're looking at, of course, the scanning, of course, the reporting, making sure that it continues to be led by experts, because that's extremely important, but also like with any part of healthcare, it's not just about the medicine that's behind it. We're also trying to look at how can we support the people within it, because what is it all about, postmortem imaging? We're trying to find closure for families. We're trying to be that voice for the deceased. We're trying to find an answer for them beyond their grave. But apart from that, for those who are left behind, for the bereaved, we want to make sure that they are being supported in that journey and getting the closure that they need. And so that's why we've decided, as you know, trying to support other services that are around it. So trying to have community projects where we have well-being events. We're also including, of course, having this podcast, Create Realization, around it, having our afterlife imaging clinic. So it's just about having that community engagement, creating that support for the bereaved, that hidden vulnerable of society, but of course, maintaining that postmortem imaging is expert led. So what is the purpose of Anubix? Empowering. That's the word I would say. Empowering anybody, whether it's experts, whether it's the NHS, whether it's the police services, and whether it's the people who need it.
Fantastic. So it's so much more than just the imaging, as you say, rather than thinking about it as one service. It's a whole big service that empowers and supports the whole community and anyone related to the space.
That's right.
And what's your role in all of this? What do you do and why do you do it?
Well, I suppose I am the co-founder with you. And what do I do? My goodness. I think the thing is, because we're in so many different spaces, and because we're a startup where we started only in May 2023, it's incredible to think it was only a year and a half that we started this journey. And I think I've been a lot of things. Some days I am overseeing different projects. Some days I'm the person who's doing the finances. Another day I might be the person who's visiting to communities. So I think it's a very adaptable role. But I think most importantly, it's apart from leading, it's also about being on the ground with everybody. So I think the nature of the job changes depending on the day, and then slowly it's become more defined as the team has grown. But I just say it's a lot of things at different times, depending on what it's needed for that particular time.
Wow, I bet you've gained a lot of new skills from doing this job compared to being a doctor before.
I tell you, absolutely. It's really being thrown into the deep end, but in all the right ways. If you're somebody who thrives from challenges, from learning new things, then this is a fantastic space, because as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, there are things in life that drain you, and then there are things in life that sustain you, that really drive you. And you know very quickly what those things are, because the things that drain you, when you get an email about it, you think, I'm going to postpone this, or you kind of already get that sinking feeling. But those things that really drive you, that you're passionate about, you don't mind. You could be spending 12 hours, 18 hours, even 24 hours doing it straight, and you just want to do more of it. And I think that's what I feel whenever I'm doing something that's Anubix related around, because we know the meaning of what we're doing. And so therefore, it drives you.
Fantastic. So lovely to hear that, and all your passion and enthusiasm really comes through. Um, at the beginning of this podcast episode, we said that you were also a post-mortem radiologist, which means you're a qualified doctor. You went through medical school and radiology training and recently only became an entrepreneur. But did you always have that entrepreneurial spirit growing up? Did you always know this was a part of your future? How did that come about?
You know what? I don't even think about myself being an entrepreneur now. And that's the funny thing. I never really understood what an entrepreneur even meant. And so suddenly it's, being invited by UKRI, STFC, giving talks about entrepreneurship, going to ECR, talking about it. And I still think I'm a bit of an imposter because I don't get what that means. But in truth, I think what I did is I did have a dream, which my dream was to actually create something that had purpose, something that was going to bring impact, because we do all this research. We're always, very much in academia in our job, even in medicine. You're always sort of churning out papers. And I was thinking, what can we do to make that difference? And one thing I always find now, I like to call this a little bit like the NHS huddle that happens, which is everybody likes to come together in the room, having a coffee, and have a really great chat about everything that's wrong with the system. This is terrible, that is bad, these are the issues. But then at the end of the day, everyone then goes back home very satisfied with this, sort of period of complaining. And then the next day, the same thing and the same thing. And so everyone knows about what the issues are in postmortem imaging, those who are in it. And I have, been in so many different rooms where the same issues kept recurring. And I think for me, it was sort of, well, aren't we doing something about it then? Why are we not taking action? We all know that these are the issues. We all know what the community deserves. So why can't we do that? But it's very difficult being the person to stick your head above the parapet. And I think that was my dream, to actually finally, and I found you who had the same dream. And, then both of us together having this shared dream, then it was very simple. The very next decision was, let's just do it. And I think it was that. And then, of course, it so happens that this was entrepreneurship journey, because of course we're moving on from actually applying what we've learned, as experts, to actually now bridging into the business world. And actually it wasn't as difficult as I thought. I in the beginning had this assumption you need to have a degree in business, to know what you're doing. But actually it's the same strategies, it's the same thought process, it's the same logic. You may not know what the terminology is of these strategies, but you can learn very quickly, like with anyone in anything. And of course, guided by others who have already been there, done that. And so it was much more natural a transition than I was expecting. And it was just fantastic because we had so many people supporting us on the journey, or who wanted to be on the journey with us because they felt the passion, they understood the mission and vision, and were also captured by it. So I think it's been a great journey so far. And yes, I suppose now I have to admit, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. It's a very bizarre thing, but there you go.
Well, that's wonderful. So it sounds like the way to start it was having a vision, having a passion, knowing inside expert knowledge about what the issues were and what you could do to solve them, and then using your transferable and analytical and problem solving skills from medicine to apply to another sphere, which you found quite transferable and easy to do. It was just learning the lingo and maybe a new pathway of doing things a different way. What was one of the biggest challenges that you had along this journey? I'm sure there were many, but is there one that really stands out to you as the
Hmm.
biggest?
I think because of the journey for us, we decided to bootstrap. And so we decided to invest our own funds into it. And so I think which was fantastic because it meant that we actually had full control over our vision, over our mission, over how things were run in the way that we wanted it being expert led. But I think, of course, then developing the business to make sure it was profitable, that it was sustaining itself, that was challenging, not out of lack of interest, but because if you're working with the public sector, there can be an issue with cash flow that we don't get paid on time. And that's something I think was a challenge to actually get through because, having to make sure we're getting the payments in can be periods of months where you're not paid for the services. And if you're running on your own finances or wanting to create the business to be sustainable, that is a challenge. And that's something to think about. So there were times in which I was tearing my hair out, kind of thinking, oh my goodness, because you assume, of course, you purchase something, you're going to get paid, but it's just a bit of a different system. And, it's just how bureaucracy sometimes works. So I think that probably was the most challenging part, if I were to choose one, than financial sustainability in the short term for those periods of time, bridging that time.
Yeah, and what about in the long term? Like that was about starting it, but keeping it going. Is there a big challenge to keeping it going for you right now? Would it might be staff management perhaps, or is it still finance related?
I would say, in terms of keeping it going, we've gotten a lot more interest now. And now, because the word has spread and we are trying to promote it, I think the challenge now is just to ensure that there is an acceptance of this being the way forward. Because, of course, the traditional concept was that it had to be autopsy as a gold standard, and now we know that it's complementary. Autopsy has its strengths, and then postmortem imaging has that too. And I think kind of navigating that bridge with different coronial regions and different coroners, probably trying to change the minds of different regions, and also ensuring that they understand that there's more than one way of setting up services that don't have to be phenomenally expensive. I think making that shift in the mindset probably is the next challenge, because cash flow now is not an issue. We've bridged that gap. So now I think it's about expanding the services in a sustainable way that is going to be meaningful for the community and also meaningful for those colonial jurisdictions.
Great, that's really interesting. So it sounds like you've been on quite a journey, had quite a lot of things you've learned, and also quite a lot of challenges you've overcome. If you were to think about all the things you know now and look back and talk to that Natasha who was just about to start this journey, what would you tell her? What kind of things were going through her head that you wish she knew, knowing what you know now?
I think the one thing is to believe in yourself more and to trust your instincts. So I started the journey because I thought, goodness, this is the great unknown. I don't know, maybe my decisions are wrong. Maybe, my idea about what potentially are the solutions are wrong. So I think I second guessed myself quite a lot at the beginning. And I think only now I've realized that I didn't need to do that, that actually my instincts and what I thought was right was indeed right. So I'd say have more faith in myself and have more belief in myself. And I think that's a natural thing that happens with anyone who's starting something new. So I think probably that's the one thing. And also trust your team, because they're always going to be behind you. The people that you know you can trust will always be there, and to lean on them more, delegate more. And I think that's another thing. We've been blessed with a phenomenal team. And I think I initially was putting a lot of the burden myself, but realizing that we have a great team, delegating more, and also seeing them thrive in the work that they're doing is simply wonderful. So that would be what I would say.
Absolutely. And speaking of a team, you yourself have been quite an inspiration to quite a few team members in trying different things in their own career, maybe having a more of a portfolio career, maybe an alternative path, which has been quite amazing to see them grow and actually take charge of their own lives rather than following a set traditional path that may or may not have suited them quite as much in the past. If there are listeners out there who are wondering if maybe an entrepreneurship journey or a portfolio career might be for them, or they want to know how to be more like you and you were mentoring them, what kind of things would you say to them or ask them to think about? What inner work do you think they need to do in order to decide whether something like this is right or wrong for them?
I think one thing they need to know is, why do they want to do it in the first place? Is it just to make a huge amount of money, and that's the only thing they have in their mind? Then I'm probably not the right person to ask about that. But if they're somebody who has a mission and they have a vision in mind and they have a really good reason for why they want to start this journey, then I think for me personally, that to be an entrepreneur, especially in healthcare, you have to be very passion driven. And I think if you have that, then that's going to be your fuel through any kind of adversity, because you will. The one thing I can guarantee is you're going to go through adversity on this journey. So I think the only way that you're going to be prepared to do that is if you believe in what you're doing. That's the first thing. And the second, with a portfolio career, of course, the cash flow and what you're going to be receiving in terms of income may not be as stable as what you're receiving in the NHS. And of course, it depends on your circumstances. Do you have dependents? Do you have, a reason? And I think it's just to carefully plan that, to understand that there will not be a definite income source every single month, or it may vary from month to month depending on what exactly your entrepreneurship is about. So just making sure you have enough of a buffer or a good enough plan to make sure that you're financially stable throughout this period. Because the worst thing to be is if you're an entrepreneur starting your journey and then to feel that you're cash strapped or that you can't manage your finances. That will be very challenging. So I think making sure you have a robust plan around that. So probably those two things: passion, and just make sure you've got a financially solid plan.
Great. All right. Well, before we wrap up this interview, I have a couple of final questions to ask you. You mentioned at the beginning a lot of great things that Anubix are doing and the huge range of services. What's next in the future for Anubix, do you think? Where do you want to see it grow? Where do you want to see it build further?
Well, I think what I would really love is for Anubix to be the partner of, any other provider who require these services, whether it's a partner to the NHS or a partner to the coroner services, or it's a partner to different countries in order to develop their own postmortem imaging services, whether it's in third world countries. So I think that's the dream, for us to be the trusted provider and the partner. So in whatever that means for them, whether it is going to an NHS trust and providing them education and training so they can create their own local postmortem imaging service, or being the provider where we actually deliver the postmortem imaging services ourselves. So I think it's just about that idea that we are the friend that you can rely on, and we are going to help you in whatever dream it is that you want to achieve for that particular region. So that's what I see for the future of Anubix, being the friend in need wherever you are.
That's a beautiful, beautiful vision, and so caring and compassionate in itself as well. Finally, the last question is the same question we ask everybody on this show. It's a tradition that we have where we ask all the guests, what is the biggest misconception you think people have about you or the work you do, or both?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions a lot of people make the assumption is that you've decided to go ahead and open your own, sort of your own company, and you've decided to do this for money. That the reason why we're doing this is financially incentivized, because there's a lot of, I think, demonization of the private sector, which I think is very unfair, because I think both in NHS, private sector, no matter where you are, it's the same thing. The good people will do a good job and want to do it for the good reasons, and those who are not so good will have different intentions, regardless of whether it's public or private sector. As you know, Susie, both of us have not taken a single penny at the moment, from Anubix at all. We have been trying to reinvest it, doing charity work, right now, because we want this as a concept to survive. So we haven't done this for money. Saying that, in entrepreneurship, there's no shame in actually making money from what you're doing. The same as there's no shame in making money in NHS, as long as you're not swindling people along the way, you're not doing anything bad by anybody alongside. I think that's one assumption, that it's money driven, and it's absolutely not. Everybody who's in our team, everybody who is doing this fantastic job, they're all doing this out of passion, and it's a fantastic thing to see. To see people wanting to do this because they enjoy it, because they believe in it, because they genuinely want to help people. So I think that's one misconception that people do have, because I think it's just they assume private and they paint everybody with the same brush, but you can't do that, whether in the private or in the public sector.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for listening. That wraps up another episode of Beyond Death. Thank you so much to Dr. Natasha Davendralingam for joining us and sharing your insights. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe to our channel. It's entirely free to subscribe, and you will be notified for new future episodes as they come out. Please also like us, rate us. It really helps us get more visibility, and share this episode with your friends and family if you think they might benefit from listening for this interview. So whilst we need to conclude our chat for now, just remember, it's not the end. There is always more beyond death.